Hello, everybody. Drasco here from uplevelmind.com, where my main mission is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs who know all the business strategies realize their next revenue milestone by mastering what's between their ears. And for today's episode, we have a real talk segment where I bring in a heart-centered entrepreneur who isn't seeing the consistent, stable growth in their business. And then live on the call, I get to help them get out of their own way on one inner challenge that they're currently experiencing towards their next business upgrade. And for today's guest, we have Tiffiny Roper, who is a girl mom family coach that focuses on helping women become their best selves so they can hit their goals, live life on purpose, and be the role model that their daughters, for their daughters rather, so they can raise our amazing female leaders of tomorrow. Tiffiny, thank you very much for being here. How are you doing?
I am great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to dive into everything. So I'd love for you to just break down in your words, kind of what got you to do what you're doing right now. What's been the story for you kind of coming here?
So what got me into mom coaching, I would say, it's been my biggest dream. I know a lot of people have dreams of they want to be a lawyer, they want to be a psychologist or whatever. And ever since I was little, I remember my only dream was to become a mom. And it was a very challenging road, if you could say at least, to get there. So I had fertility issues that were never discovered what they were. And then I finally went through IVF and got the blessing of finding out I was pregnant with boy and girl twins. And at 5 months along, out of nowhere, the day after their anatomy scan at 20 weeks, I lost them. And going through that horrendous tragedy made me just realize how much it was a dream I really wanted and needed, but also how little you control in life. You get to really control how you react to it, more so than what actually happens. So I went through surgery and tried again with IVF, and ended up pregnant with my girls that I have now, and had the blessing of twin girls about a year later. In that time frame, as well, while I was pregnant with my girls, I lost my dad out of nowhere, who was my core parent, I would say, the one that mainly raised me and taught me, everything that I'd known at that point, and had really saved me at that point in order to get through the loss I had. And so then discovering, on day two, it kind of continued. So I then discovered I had heart failure that was caused from my pregnancy once my babies were 2 days old. And so trying to figure out all of that, it just made me realize, you don't get anything guaranteed. Nobody's promised tomorrow. And no matter how many times you have something bad happen to you, it doesn't mean life's done, banging at your door and knocking you down. And so I had to really, figure out how to pull myself up with my bootstraps. And in doing that, I thought I was getting into a good place. And then 2020 hit. And I found myself with a lot of people, I bet, not getting to see all the people that you're used to seeing and having the relationships and interactions in person that I was used to. I started getting down and depressed, and started trying to figure out a way to get out of that. And that's where I started finding some, self-improvement and different folks and coaches and that kind of stuff that I went to. And I realized in the next year, that's what I was really meant to do. It was something that I kind of already done, like a counselor, if you will, but I wasn't really getting paid for it. So I thought, this is something I actually feel like, outside of being a mom, I have a purpose and a love, and I could do and have that fulfillment. And then I saw how it started changing me. And by changing myself, I started changing all the relationships around me, and discovered how important it was for moms who are often overworked, overwhelmed, exhausted, have no energy, and how they're struggling the same way. And it made me want to really learn how to reach out, to hone my skills as a coach, and to start figuring out how I can serve those people. And so that's where I came to where I am now. And I think our our girls, especially with this chaotic world, our girls are what's going to save us. And if we can't role model our best selves to them, I don't think they're going to have the shot that they need. You know, my dad raised me on the theory of do as I say, not as I do, and it doesn't work. So if we can't figure ourselves out and then represent that to our kids, I don't know that we're going to be able to create the leaders that we need for tomorrow.
Thank you for sharing that, because it's such a beautiful story of like taking like really bad situations, really bad hands that kind of life and circumstance gives you, and then finding like the beautiful in them, right? Like the blossom that can come out of those things, right? Not just from the perseverance to, have the girls that you have now after that long dream, but even going through, all the other stuff that you mentioned to come out on top and be like, now this is my purpose. Like I can share this message. I can see how this can ripple out into the world. Like it's such a beautiful thing to witness from the outside looking in. Because it's, even though not everybody has your story, everybody has their own version of something
Absolutely.
like that. So it's always like a very relatable thing. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
sharing that. You're very welcome. And what I would like to then segue into, so it sounds like, okay, you're moving into this space where, the why behind why you're moving into coaching. But now it seems like you're at this place where, okay, I was doing this and I didn't realize it was like valuable. I was doing it for no money. Now I want to make money in it. So
Mhm.
what are like the business problems that you seem to be running into right now?
Yeah, great question. So I'm trying to self-reflect, right, and figure out what's causing some of the issues. And I think part of it's and maybe a good portion of it's mindset. Until like 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, when I started doing all of this, like how do I figure myself out kind of thing. I never thought about being an entrepreneur. In fact, my dad was, and we were always broke. We were homeless. We had electricity and lights and stuff turned off so many times I can't even count. We had, no food half of the week, and so everybody was like, "Can't wait till Friday till you have food again." So we struggled, and to me, I looked at being an entrepreneur as very risky. And so it's a huge mindset shift to then say, there's a risk in everything. The whole pandemic taught us that, but with everything, you can cross the street and something could happen, you get hit by a bus. So there's definitely risk in everything in life. And you have to just look at the risk versus reward with it. And so I think that's part of it, just trying to get my mind around, it's being an entrepreneur. And even with jobs, you can get fired, let go, furloughed, whatever. Again, a lot of people learned that during the pandemic. So, I think that's a lot of it. And then also I've been in the corporate world forever. So, I've done project management, which is kind of funny. And I find it works out well with coaching because I've always had people accountable and had to hold them accountable for getting work done and being on time and on budget. And I played the coach, the counselor, the cheerleader, the whatever I needed to make sure to get that done and built those relationships in order to do it. And so, it's interesting how life kind of, takes you down a certain path. But I found in the corporate world, it's very reactive. So you're given a project, you have an issue that comes up, you go resolve that issue, you get a phone call or email, you go reply to those. And in the entrepreneur world, it's very proactive. Otherwise, you're not, kind of after yourself and very on top of what you do, you're not going to get anything done. And so just trying to change that mindset, I think has been kind of a jump more so than I thought. And then just trying to get myself out there in general. It's silly, but it's like, I've done this forever. And I've done it just kind of like because I wanted to be there for people and serve people. And so it almost makes you feel bad wanting to charge for it. But at the end of the day, you find people don't really pay attention unless they're paying. And so you have to kind of find a way to get past that. So I wonder if that's also part of it is trying to get past the feeling okay with serving people, but also charging for it.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of stuff there, and kudos to you for having the self-awareness to kind of like see the different pieces that could potentially be interplaying together. So just to kind of get a little bit more fine tuned, right? Like you had mentioned a lot of the, let's just say, symptomatic mindset type pieces, many of which I feel like you've actually overcome, right? Like, yes, I did grow up in an environment where, entrepreneurship was associated with being broke, and sure, that's going to have ripple effects now, right? Reactive versus proactive, like those actually all seem to be things that like you're aware of and like I've shifted, right?
Mhm.
So what I'm curious about is like more dialed into like your actual business, like what's actually happening in it that you are finding challenging or that's problematic.
Yeah, I would say the getting myself out there. As I understand, the more I'm learning, it's, you kind of start with your inner circle and talk with them, and getting the right content out there in order to get the right clients. I also know that I wanted to find a niche that I was passionate about, and I originally thought about helping moms that were working moms, and maybe they were ready to try something else and get out of the working world and start their own thing and find their own passion. But I didn't want to feel inauthentic doing it. I wanted something that I had actually accomplished already, and that I felt like I could serve better. And I'm very passionate about being a mom and raising leaders, and just having that empowerment that I want girls and women. Obviously it starts with the moms to have. And so that's where I'm passionate. But I also find that women don't take the time for themselves. And so am I shooting myself in the foot by having a niche that, the mom's already tired and overwhelmed, and now you're going to give her one more thing to do. So, that's another thing that I've kind of questioned. And am I able to get the right content out of the right message to allow women to, take the time for themselves and realize how important it is, and that you need to do it now, because, they don't get better until we get better.
Absolutely. So that aspect of and I guess this is where the Canadian bit comes out, where I say niche and you say niche, right? So with regards to like the niche, right? So clearly, like you're saying, okay, busy moms is potentially like a subset of that, but they're already busy. So like, do I add more things to their plate? So if you go beyond that, like the implication specifically for you, right? Like what does that translate into as a business problem? Like, is that I don't have enough sales, I'm not getting the right people
Right.
can't charge the right amount? Like what's actually manifesting for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say the leads, getting the right leads in order to, be able to have the calls and that kind of stuff, to even be able to talk to somebody about what I can offer and what I can do for them.
Got it. Okay. So getting the right leads, and when you get the wrong leads, like what's the issue? Like they can't afford your services? Like what is actually going on?
Yeah, that's the main thing I'm getting. Isn't even the affordability more so than it is the time. It's just one more thing. I just don't have time for this. At that, I get that more than I get the money thing, funny enough. So
Got it.
they
Okay.
don't they don't put themselves on the priority list high enough to, help themselves so they can continue to help everybody that they love around them.
Okay. So it's like I would like to have this, but it's not worth like the time to actually do it, which is like the cart before the horse problem, right? Like they actually
Right.
need to do that in order to get the time. So okay,
Right.
got it. So in terms of yourself then, so you're like, again, you're very well aware of, okay, this is probably an issue. There's something that's wrong here. What's your, like, what do you feel like is your biggest challenge for overcoming this?
I think probably just, maybe it's a numbers game. I mean, I started in sales way back when, even though I didn't really want to, but I ended up being, it was like my way to get into the door of a big company I wanted to work for after college. And I ended up being really good at it. And funny enough, all I did was talk to people and build relationships, and, was honest with them. And so at the end of the day, I think it's just a numbers thing, making sure I'm scheduling it and having a certain number, of hours a day. And I'm very diligent about doing that. And then having my, hours that I go in and create different content, and then, try new things. So, but that I think is a lot of it, is just, trying to get the right people, and then creating the content that actually gets them interested enough to at least have a call.
Got it. And is that getting done right now?
Not as much as I would like. So I'm still working full time, and then, have kids and a family and all their activities. So it's sad to say, but isn't it funny and ironic that the issue that I'm getting, or the excuse, if you will, I'm getting, is the same excuse that I'm giving. So it's a challenge sometimes, but I think with me, it's also the mindset. It's not just the finding the time and trying to really just sit down and be diligent and schedule it. It's that, is this, the right niche? Is this a lost cause? Am I, doing the right thing here? Should I try something else? So I'm almost like questioning myself, and maybe that's what's causing the pause.
And when you say you're questioning yourself, is it due to like the clarity piece of like, I don't know if this is the right niche, or is it, should I even be doing this?
Well, at the end of the day, I obviously want to do it full time and make money doing it, because I think I can serve more people that way. If I ended up doing it on the side and didn't make money, I still feel like I can minimally find purpose and fulfillment in it, though that wouldn't be the ultimate goal. So I think it's, partially the niche thing, and then the going back to the kind of the proactive, am I in the right area? Because they always say, you want to get down to a specific niche and then kind of go from there. And so then it's like, okay, do you go all in here, or do you, reevaluate and say, wait, hold on, no, I need to go all in there, that kind of thing. And so it's like, it just makes me wonder. It's like, that's what I'm passionate about. So do I just keep continuing to go down the road that I'm passionate about and help the moms that I know I can help, and get them through the whole concerns with time and that kind of stuff. So that's where I think, sometimes it's time, but I'll make time for stuff. I've learned to do that. And so I've always been busy. So I think it's more so something with the, that's holding me back, the mindset level.
Got it. So if you were coaching yourself, what would you say to yourself?
Schedule it, quit making excuses. Just get out and do it, get feedback. You'd be surprised how many people would, probably like it. Just, reevaluate and update your content different, or how you're trying to reach people differently, try something new. It's like all those things that, but yeah. So then what?
Well, I mean, that sounds pretty great. Like, to be honest, like, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with anything that you said, because it sounds like you have the iteration piece there, like just go out, test it, see what happens, iterate, keep scheduling it in. So again, awareness isn't really an issue here.
Right.
Really, it comes down to post-awareness is where the block seems to be.
Right.
So when you are aware of these things and you have these options in front of you, how do you actually feel?
I guess it's scary putting yourself out there. When I was in sales, I was selling a computer, and if you're in a project, your end result is, in sales, you have the numbers at the end of the month. You get the project done at the end of the month, that kind of thing. And just it's almost like this fear of rejection or something. It isn't so much of a fear of failure as it is rejection, because you're putting yourself out there in a very vulnerable position, and you're selling you. And so it's hard to not think that you're the one getting rejected when you're getting rejected, when excuses are being made or whatever, when you're like, oh my gosh, I could help you, just stop with your excuses.
So basically you're avoiding tasks that could potentially get you rejected.
Right.
And those same tasks can actually get you the result that you want, which is more clients, more conversations.
Right. And just go out there, like I said, and make it a numbers game, and, keep getting the no's. I mean, because no's have never bothered me, again, but it's when I'm selling other stuff. I've never had an issue. I've always told people, oh, well, you get a no. Great. Well, you're that much closer to a yes. When the next time, you talk to the next person, or, hey, maybe you just asked the wrong person, or maybe it's a no for now. But it just feels different when it's you yourself that you're selling.
Right. Because at that point, they're rejecting the product. They're not rejecting you.
Right.
Okay. So when you hold that narrative of they're going to reject me, right? I get the feeling that I'm at that point scared. What action do you take from that state?
I think at that point, you just have to jump in anyways. That's what I would tell my girls too.
Right, which is a great
Great, you
answer, but what do
failed.
you actually
And,
do?
what was that?
Like that is the right answer. Yeah, you face the fear and do it anyway. That's one option for sure. But what is it that you actually done if you're looking at evidence historically?
Yeah, so I've sent out invites to a course, and I'm just doing it for free. So it's one I've kind of have an outline on, and then I'm going to start that in March. Only had a few people that are interested in it. I just did, for my Facebook group, that kind of thing, Instagram and Facebook group. But it's a place to start, and I'm hoping if nothing else, then I'll at least get some kind of feedback, or at least get my toe in the water. And so it doesn't, I see the transitions and the help and, that kind of stuff. And so then it feels good to do it versus the rejection bad feeling that you hear.
So then that, what you just described, like those are actions you've taken already, like before this call?
Yeah. So I did that, let's say last week. And I was just like, I'm just going to put a date out there because I have to. So,
Perfect. And
I
then
guess
how
that's the
many
jumping in.
subsequent like follow-up and visibility activities did you do after that?
So I then reached out to a few different people that I know, and I've gotten like 3 people that are interested in order to do that. And again, then, some of it's back to well, I don't have the time for this, or that time doesn't work for my schedule, or that kind of thing. So, I'm working with the ones that I do have. And, again, I don't want it to be so solidly created that we can't just go with the flow a little bit, but have a solid enough outline that I can allow them to kind of co-create with me and get feedback and decide what's good and what's not good, what's working, what's not working, and then kind of update from there. And then again, it's just, back to, I think I just need to start going through, your contact list and things like that and start reaching out to people and play the numbers game and see who I hook in that sense.
Got it. So you are okay to like brainstorm the solutions. You got the self-awareness piece on like what the next action could be. I take some like basic version of that next task and get a little ripple of results, but I never take like the giant full all-in version of that action. Is that accurate to you or no?
I mean, I know some people say burn the boats, like, oh, just quit your job and just da da da. But at the end of the day, it's, the bills have to get paid. And so that's to me, a very, happy, thought. But it's also, I don't know that it's super intelligent until you at least have some kind of a client build up and a consistent revenue coming in,
Right. And by
especially when you
burn the
have
boats,
kids.
you
So.
mean like quit your job and just focus on doing
Right.
this.
Right. Something like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's interesting that that's where your brain went to, because like I asked you the question of, okay, so like you have the awareness, you understand what the next step is. You tend to feel scared about getting out there and doing steps that are associated with essentially rejection of yourself. So, hey, do you want to buy my stuff type of tasks?
Mm-hmm.
You do a basic version of those, like you mentioned. Okay, I sent out that invite, got some like feedback, etc. But then I don't really run the numbers. I haven't gone through my whole contact list. I haven't done the full extent of that action. I haven't exhausted all aspects of that action that I possibly can. If exhausting all aspects was like a 10 out of 10, I might have done, 3, 4, whatever, like some
Right.
low
Right.
version of that. Right. And my question to you was like, is that accurate? And where your brain went to was, oh no, but like I can't like burn the bridges. Like I'm not going to quit my
Yeah.
job and not pay my bills. So I'm curious to you, what do you think the disconnect was between like where the narrative was going and what the question was, to just kind of deflecting it and going a different direction?
Well, I don't know. I was just saying, I think that's something that people sometimes say, like, oh, you're not really serious about it unless you are going to go all in the sense of like, quit your full-time job or that kind of thing. And I think it puts too much pressure and desperation, on people. So I don't know that that's a smart route to go. And yeah, I think I definitely need to kind of go through the Rolodex, if you will. And then also just I think, with because I did the coaching classes and that kind of stuff to get certified. And I'm still not feeling super comfortable with the technology and marketing side of stuff and how you need to use social media as well as you can. And so I find sometimes I'm caught in like that learning stage too, where I'm trying to figure things out, because I don't have the separate money to then go and invest in the 15 different things that maybe I can invest in, or I'll just have a virtual assistant do it, or I'll have, this or that. So it's kind of like you're playing the solopreneur game, trying to figure it out, which, I guess at the end of the day is going to it'll take a little bit longer, but it's where you're at right now. And then, just keep doing the reaching out to people and doing the courses and the reiterations and getting feedback and improving content and that kind of thing.
Yeah, in terms of the action plans, like I think you have a very solid grasp on like what needs to be done, right? Are there skill gaps in terms of like tech and like maybe the messaging and all of that? Sure, right? Like that's you can have all the mindset you want, but you need some of the
Right.
tech or the skill
Right.
aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm curious about then, and I know we kind of touched on this before, but it's like there is this gap and like a break, right? There's like you literally press the brakes between the realization and the awareness of what needs to happen as the next step and like going all in on the next step. So I'm curious again, like what do you think that challenge might be for you? Or it's like I'm not really clear on it.
It could be a little of both. It could be still the fear of rejection part, and the I'm not sure. Maybe I need some clarity there.
Okay. So if we dive into the rejection, like would that be okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. So if you are rejected, then fill in the blank.
Yeah, I know it's silly, isn't it? Because it's like, oh, well, and then you move on to the next one. I mean, in theory, in my mind, I
So
get it. It's
how
like, oh,
about we
that's a
circumvent
no.
the theory and your mind, and I
Yeah.
want you to actually like tap into like if your ideal client or ideal prospect rejects you as the individual, like I reject Tiffiny and her coaching, then fill in the blank for you personally.
It's hard not to take it personal, even if it's not meant personally. But I would probably have to, just lick my wounds and get back up anyways and try the next call and maybe say the words differently or try something different, to see if that made any kind of a difference, and
Okay.
realize that it might be a maybe, not a no. Maybe it's just a not for now or whatever.
And when you do take it personally, what does that mean about you?
Well, it goes back into that whole thing that we all have as humans. Are you worthy of love? Are you valued enough? Are you worthy of being here? That whole thing.
So if your ideal prospect rejects you, are you worthy of love? Are you being worthy of being here?
Right. Yes. I mean, absolutely I am. But, it's at some uh, piece of you inside, you're still also going to, I think, play that because it's a record that's been there, and crazy childhoods and that kind of stuff that you get that message. And so it's hard to completely shut it down. I mean, you can kind of quiet it. You can be realistic about it and know like, okay, that's stupid and not true. Obviously I'm worthy. But then there's a piece of you that's still like, are you?
Yeah. And that's the piece that gets triggered every time you're going to put yourself in a situation where
Yeah.
you can actually be rejected.
Yeah. It's just like one more tick in the block of, are you, every time.
Correct. So I appreciate the vulnerability and the courage to go down that road, because it's obviously not a fun road to go, but it's a critical one if you do want to overcome this.
Right.
And what I would venture to say and invite you to consider is right now in this moment, the emotion is very real, right? However, nobody in this moment actually rejected you.
Right.
So before somebody like that ideal hypothetical prospect rejects you, who's
Yeah.
actually doing the rejection?
Yeah, you're rejecting yourself. And of course, that's what you're mirroring into the clients that you're afraid are going to reject you. And it's really, I'm just rejecting myself.
Correct. So if you're now zooming out and kind of going from what we started this whole recording with, right? Like, are my business problems actually me problems? What you face in front of you right now, as far as like the business piece is concerned, right? So yes, getting myself out there. How do I develop the right content, the right niche for the audience that I have, right? The tech pieces.
Right.
There are skill elements to that. You can get better at the craft of your
Right.
message, the refinement, the iteration of all of that. But when it comes down to the other ones you identify, like getting the right leads that can afford me with the time, realistically speaking, right now, what's pressing the brakes is so much more of your own rejection and patterns that are
Right.
actually putting the brakes on the business, right? Even if you're just looking through my notes, the core narratives are all circled around aspects of unworthiness, right? It's scary to put
Right.
myself out there because they'll reject me, so therefore I better not do it, right? Is this even a lost cause, i.e., am I worthy to even do this business, right? I'm actually scared of the same like patterns that my clients say they are, so that whole projection bit, right? If I'm too busy, etc. Being busy is a great excuse not to ever trigger I'm actually unworthy to do the things that I want to do, right? I feel bad for charging for my services,
Right.
i.e., who I am and what I bring to the table isn't worthy enough to actually make a business out of this, right? And then not
Right.
to mention the narratives of like what entrepreneurship and the riskiness and the struggles of your past you kind of brought in as baggage to this whole thing,
Right.
right? So like you have those narratives powering the business problems, and they're manifesting as patterns that really are always about your brain has a lot of good practice being aware of the technical aspects, like the moving pieces. But your pattern really is, as soon as I'm aware of it, I just go on and consider another variable, or I'll take a baby step forward, but never really go all in to do the things that, even if I don't solve the skills issues that I'm missing in my business, could still move me forward, because each of that step risks more rejection and more triggering of that sentiment of like, I'm not enough,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
really it's those narratives and that stopping, pausing, breaking pattern that right now is contributing to the business problems that you're seeing. So
Right.
how does all of that land for you?
Yeah, it sounds like you need to have the solution now. Yeah, it sounds right on.
Yeah. So the solution is going to be multifold, right? Because you have the narratives. So it's like, how do I learn to manage my narratives? How do I let go of these like thoughts that are rooted in the lens of I'm not enough? And then how do I work on the behaviors and the patterns so that they align with the results that I actually want? And then how
Right.
do I close the skill gaps that I'm lacking? Right.
Right.
So that's a tall order for one podcast episode. It is an iterative process to do that, but in terms of like where do I got to look, those are really going to be the three main elements that you're going to need to solve to
Right.
really move forward in a significant way.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I agree.
so tell me what's coming up for you then as I reflect that back.
No, it's easy to, like you're saying, kind of come up with the what I'm supposed to be doing and what I know in my mind and being aware of it, versus figuring out how to resolve the hardest issue to resolve, about the worth. But I do think that you get some worth by having the ability to go out and serve the people that I know I can serve and that are needing served. And it's like a stacking effect that if I just get out there and do it and see and you get the pleasure of seeing how I'm helping people make shifts that can really improve their lives and really improve their kids' lives. That maybe in some way it's healing the little girl in me.
Yeah. And again, thank you for the courage to share that, because I feel that, and it's something that's very common in the clients that I work with, because so many of them have the same sentiment of like, my mess becomes my message.
Right.
And what I would reflect back to you in that sentiment is there's definitely some truth to that. And there is also an additional danger to that. And here's what I mean. You can spend a lifetime saving other people and use that as a distraction to never look at saving yourself.
Right.
And no amount of healing the world is ever going to fill the hole in your soul. And I mean that with utmost respect, because I've been there myself as well. In fact, it was part of what got me to implode my first business. So I know that really well. Ultimately, it comes down to the level that you can heal other people is going to be in proportion to the level that you've made peace in yourself. So you're always going to be going out searching people that have your wound. And then you're going to be disappointed when you can't actually help them, i.e., exactly the business pattern that you're seeing right now. Oh, they're always busy. They're always saying no to these things. But on the flip side, you're always saying no, and you're outsourcing the healing you want to do in them and hoping you can use that as a proxy to heal yourself. But the reality,
I say you often teach what you need to learn, yourself the most, right?
Correct. And that has its value in the reflection, but it's fragile long-term, right? Because if you get lost in that, you're going to spend a lifetime of serious disappointment and needing, right? Like there's a difference between like, I want to do this work and I need to do this work. Just like in relationships, right? Like I want to be with this person versus I need this person. Totally, completely different dynamics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the exact same thing here, right? And it's again interesting that as soon as I reflected back to you how this core wound of I'm not worthy is rippling into your narratives, it's rippling into the day-to-day patterns, and it's rippling into the business issues that you have, where you go to is not, at least right away, okay, well, how do I solve this in myself? It's how do I find more people to solve this in the hopes that I can solve myself, i.e., it's just another defense strategy that sounds really good, but it can be a very slippery slope.
All right. And I'm definitely not thinking or acting like I can solve the world's problems. But I also know that I'm further ahead than maybe someone who hasn't had a chance to do any kind of work over the last couple of years. And even if I'm a couple of steps ahead, that might be all that they need for them to hold on. I noticed when I went through, the grieving and stuff of losing my babies and losing my dad, but especially my babies, people don't know how to help people grieving. They go to the funeral and then they leave and they think they've done their part. And it's because no one knows how to talk about it. No one knows how to deal with it. And I had to learn how to get through it and want to live every day when originally I didn't want to. And so I think just in having gotten through, because you always wonder about the why did I go through this? And, what am I supposed to learn from it? And you often have to move on, even though you don't necessarily get the why. But I feel like part of the why with everything I have been through in my life is that is what I'm meant to do, is go out and help other women and serve them. And even if I can't make them feel completely whole, if I can make it where they can hold on one more day, that might be all I need to do that day. And I know there's people out there that need that.
100%. And I think that is supremely valuable. And I don't think myself or anybody listening would deny the raw ingredients that you have to do this type of work. I think that is abundantly clear, and like there's no doubt in my mind for that aspect, right? This whole process right now is more taking a look at the raw ingredients are there, but it's like they're not being put together to get the result that you want, right?
Right.
So it's like, what's that gap, right? So as
Right.
far as like the pieces that we spoke about, um I think it again comes back to that same, like the narrative and the pattern and how it manifests in the business bit,
Right.
right? So that
Yeah.
closing the gap is kind of what we spoke about before, right? It's going to take work on the narrative side, and how do I like clean out my thoughts? Like, how do I do that thought hygiene to make sure that
Yeah.
that doesn't get in the way, right? How do I change the patterns to basically think, feel, and act in alignment with the result that I want? And then in turn, execute to get as far as I
Mhm.
can with the skill sets that I have, while continuing to build the next skill sets and not letting the narratives and the pattern get in the way of
Right.
that. Right. So, and I know it's kind of a
Mhm.
zoomed out picture. It doesn't solve the whole thing, but again, in this container, it's going to be very hard to solve all three of those
Right.
things
Absolutely.
at once. So does that make sense? Kind of like where we're at as far as like just the reflection back?
No, it does. I think that's, very helpful too. So I like how you're reflecting back and making sense of all the crazy.
Yeah, that's
So,
that's usually what I do, is take the jumbled up bits and kind of to take out the essence out of them. So I'm glad that that's coming out for you. So in that case, like as far as this container is concerned right now, like does this feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
no, I think it's definitely helpful. And it kind of gives me a chance to review and reflect myself and being able to, see what's kind of deep down. But I think it's also that pain that would help me see, the same pain in others. You can't ask somebody to be vulnerable if you're not vulnerable yourself. If you haven't felt that pain truly yourself, it's hard to really see someone else when they go through it. I remember after losing my babies, and my sister wanted me to go to a counselor, and I just didn't find any. I went and I thought it was not helpful at all. And it's nothing against counselors, but I literally just needed her to tell me how to live that day. And she hadn't been through it. And so I found nothing she said was very authentic. And the only help I got was when I started finding different like Yahoo groups and things like that at the time that were people that had actually gone through it. And so they could understand it because they'd been there. And so it's that kind of heart and service that I want to offer people, because they know I'm authentic and I'm vulnerable, and I'm not asking them to do something I'm not willing to do and I haven't done myself. And so, but
100%.
it's definitely helpful, like I was saying, with the reflecting, you be able to see that, but also help get the value that I can provide, even if it isn't perfect. But perfect is an illusion anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think it goes back to the whole like raw ingredients bit, right? Like you walk your own talk to a T. And I think when those pieces hit for you to like line up those like the narratives and the patterns and with the business, it's going to be extremely helpful for a lot of people, right? So I think it's like
Right.
holding on to that is going to be a very key thing. Um, so yeah, I'm totally in agreement with that. And then again, not that I want to cut you off, but I just want to make sure, like, as far
Right.
as the
No, no.
awareness piece here, like if that feels complete for you, or is
Mhm.
there still something left outstanding?
No, definitely. I think that was very helpful, being able to reflect that. And so that's definitely helpful.
Perfect. So then what I'd love for you to just summarize for us then, you came into like basically your experience of coming into this, what were like, where were you at? And then what were your realizations after going through this process?
Just, I think, trying to figure out, well, I'm in my mind, right? And I know I'm aware of certain things, but like I'd have to ask any kind of a client, you have to be more in your heart, and being able to kind of reflect, on more of that side of it, and seeing, what's truly holding me back, and then ways that I can, move forward. And so I don't uh, block myself from having the business that I want and being able to serve the people that I want. by kind of in a silly way, but in an authentic way, being kind of stuck in your own stuff too much, you know? And so,
Yeah.
like I said, I think that's been very helpful to be able to reflect on that and go a little bit more deep into what the real issues are.
Beautifully said. So I appreciate you for that. And then just to close us off, then tell everybody, where they can find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So yeah, I've been starting out over the last year. And so right now I'm just doing the Facebook group, and it's Girl Mom Family Coaching. And, like I said, I'm interested in being able to help and serve in any way and format. I'm open to be able to help those that are really trying to hit goals and be a better person and be the best them. Because at the end of the day, if we can't fix ourselves, we can't empower ourselves, we can't empower our kids, because they see what we do more than what we say. And so, like you said, we have to be able to live our talk and walk it.
Absolutely. Love it. And yeah, we'll include all the show notes as far as like the link to your group and all of that. So Tiffiny, thank you very much for coming on and being your brave, vulnerable self. And to everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thanks so much.